Hello, please don't skip this. What I'm about to say is important for me, for you, and for the country that we call India. What I want to tell you is that Hindi is not the national language of India and should not be made so. Now, please know that I'm not anti Hindi. I too am a speaker of this beautiful language and respect it to the utmost. But that doesn't stop me from saying this. It's unfair to make Hindi the national language. The following are mere opinions, and it's alright for everyone to have different views. I hope the following information will not hurt anyone's feelings. Today is Hindi Divas, a day to celebrate the language. It was also the occasion when Hindi was declared one of the official languages of India along with English. I'm not asking you to stop celebrating it, but please celebrate it with the right facts and ideals in mind. I hope the following points will help you understand things better and make you aware enough to speak against Hindi imposition. Firstly, half of India's population doesn't understand Hindi. The total number of Hindi speakers, including first and second language speakers, is still between 40 to 50%. Making Hindi the national language would be unfair and disadvantageous to the other half of the population. Even if you argue that it is understood to some extent by most Indians, it is only true for speakers of Indo-Aryan languages, which includes Punjabi, Bengali, Marathi, Assamese, etc. For speakers of other language families, say Tamil, Malayalam, or Meitei speakers, it is very difficult to understand the language unless they are exposed to it beforehand. Even with the growing influence of Hindi media and Bollywood culture, there are still Indians who don't understand a word of Hindi. The Hindi that we speak is not the Hindi being promoted by the government. Either or both the state and central, and the education boards. The Hindi being promoted is highly Sanskritized to the extent that even native first language speakers of Hindi have a hard time understanding some words. Believe me. The commonly spoken Hindi has a huge amount of Persian, Arabic, and English loanwords, which cannot be ignored. Hindi and Urdu are in fact the same language, merely different registers or dialects. The only major difference is the script used. By promoting this highly Sanskritized form of what was once referred to as Hindvi, Hindustani, Rekhta, or by many other names, we are merely creating a wall between speakers of the various dialects of Hindi or Hindustani, and adding to the schism created by the British to divide us. Making Hindi the national language would make it necessary and most probably compulsory for all Indians to learn Hindi. This is an unnecessary burden to speakers of other languages, as the Hindi speakers will obviously have an upper hand. Think about it. A language is one's identity. Imposing Hindi would mean manipulating this identity. It is an unnecessary cultural imposition on speakers of other languages. Hindi doesn't have a rich history, at least not when you reject the idea that Awadhi, Braj, Bhojpuri, and other North Indian languages are dialects of Hindi. By considering them to be dialects, you will contribute to their destruction, as more and more North Indians are turning to the modern standard Hindi due to lack of proper resources or neglect by the authorities in promoting these languages. More often than not, they are just ashamed of speaking their true mother tongue because those languages are considered as inferior to Hindi or uncouth or distorted versions of Hindi. There are Indian languages with history and literature much richer than Hindi. The Hindi being promoted came about and became influential only in the last 100 years or so. So why should Hindi be made the national language just on the basis of majority speakers when there are languages like Bengali, which was the language of prominent poets and literators like Tagore and Sarchandra, or Tamil, whose history is as old and rich as that of Sanskrit? Language and cultural imposition can create distrust among the minorities. Just see the case of our neighbor Bangladesh, which was created as a result of Urdu imposition. I understand and value the Indian government's wish to bring about unity through uniformity, but why do that when we are more united when our diversity is respected? The last issue, which is probably the most important of all, is that minority languages will suffer. As Hindi becomes more and more influential, people will leave their mother tongues and adopt this language. Even if the parents are fluent, they might talk to their kids and partners in Hindi, And as a result, the next generation might not be as fluent in the language, and the language will die out in subsequent generations as Hindi becomes their new mother tongue. This is already happening in our country. So, how do we deal with it? Spread awareness on the above mentioned points. Please take the effort to learn your language and pass it on to your children. Help language enthusiasts if they are interested in your language, and most of all, love your identity and keep India linguistically diverse. Of course, we the public cannot do much without the support of our authorities, and hence I'd also request the governments of all states as well as the union government to please stop Hindi imposition and instead promote our other regional languages with special focus on the endangered and minority ones. Thanks for listening. Happy Hindi Divas. Jai Hind.